People are like, oh yeah, he left because, no, he left because he got paid a lot
He
more
left
money.
on a 5-fight win streak. Do you think the UFC wanted to lose him? They didn't want to lose him.
No. That's why Bellator had to pay him so much.
And he deserves
he said,
it.
hey, I'm going to try the free market. I'm going to try the free agency, see what happens. And he had worked with Coker before. He liked working with Coker when he was with Strikeforce. And he said, hey, I'll pay you this much money. Come back over. So he just came over. Like that's how these business dealings go down. Like if you have a relationship with some of these fighters, then you're able to work on, hey, what can you do for me for real? Not this business of, this is what it is.
Well,
let's try and work together.
And let's be honest. Let's put it out there. It's also the way your deal is structured. The UFC is very, straight up the line. They do a 50-50. They do you have a show and a win. That's a 50-50 split. So, Gegard, let's be honest, he doesn't have a 50-50 split. Okay? He gets paid what he gets paid, no matter if he wins or loses. That's a nice element for him that he doesn't have to worry about. He knows exactly what he's going to make. I always say, a lot of fighters mentally spend that money, especially in the UFC where they're fighting a tough guy, right? And they go, oh, I'm going to make this much. And you've already mentally spent $40,000 and you come out with 20. That sucks. That's a big loss. It hurts. So,
yep.
It's
and if you come out with any injury and you're out for an extended period of time, that's not a lot of money to live off.
No, it's not.
And I'm not here to talk about, which promotion pays more, which promotion, like it just comes down to certain fighters. And that's just so people understand. Certain fighters get the all-in deals. Gegard being what he's proven to be, he deserves an all-in deal. Like he doesn't fight any less hard based off of how much he's getting paid. He fights. If he was to fight less hard, it'd be because someone doesn't motivate him. He's at the stage where, like, when he's a motivated fighter, I don't see very many people able to beat him.
Yeah.
And everyone keeps going back to the Uriah Hall fight. That could happen to anybody, but you go back and watch. Then he came back and beat him.
Oh, smoked him.
So he lost to him one time, then he came back and beat him. But he was winning that fight
easy.
up until he got clipped.
Yep. But
you know what I mean?
That's fighting. All it takes is one.
Yep. And people just want to go back to, that one time in band camp. They remember,
Well, it's funny. After the show, you and I, we go and we have a beer or whatever and enjoy ourselves. And I was talking with a fighter who does not fight for Bellator, does not fight for the UFC, but wants to go to the UFC. And I will tell you, the dude's a stud. He is a beast, a monster, really good. And he's sitting there talking to me. He says, I've been talking. Sean Shelby's telling me just, get a little more time. And I'm going, okay. I said, but why? I go, you're in the prime of your career, and you're allowing Sean Shelby, who I'm not saying anything bad about him. He's putting you on the back burner because he has too many people on his roster coming from a certain area, and you're that guy that, he knows you're good. He knows you're able to beat a ton of people on his roster, but he owes them fights, and he's having you wait, and you're just going to wait for him. I go, have you lost your mind? I go, you tell me right now, why is it you fight? Tell me. And he goes, because I love it. I said, okay, you love it. Great. I said, does your family love it? And they go, well, yeah, I mean, I'm away from them a lot. So tell me, why do you fight? He goes, well, for the money. I said, then why are you going with the people that is going to give you the least amount of money for what you do? I go, he's already got you. As soon as he says, hey, here, you want to come to us? He's going to send you a contract, and it's going to be a very basic base contract that you're not going to make much money. You're going to have to win. Let's say if it's a 4-fight contract or a 6-fight contract, you're going to have to win those fights, all of them, to get bumped up. I go, now you've gone 2-3 years of your career where you haven't made shit, but you're fighting for the UFC. I said, hey, if your ego is that it needs that, do it. I'm telling you, do it. I go, but the thing you should be thinking about fighting for is putting food on the table for your family. And how much money can I put in the bank so I don't have to do this forever? I said, that's what it's about. I said, that's why it's called prize fighting. And he's looking at me like, kind of makes sense.
Like when a dog looks at its owner, with tilts his head. It's just like,
so I don't know.
I mean, look, it's.
I don't blame him, and I understand it, and that's one of the things like the UFC really has going for them is that's validity. You validate fighters feel validated when they make it to the UFC because I'm one of those guys. I'm one of the best then. Okay. Yep. You're one of them, but you're not the one, and they're paying you a lot less because you are so ingrained that that's where I need to be to prove to everybody else that I'm, up of this level. You're crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I think for me, I was blessed enough to, and I worked my ass off, but I was blessed enough to be signed by them when I was early in my career.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was like 22, 23 when they signed me. And when I look back, I'm like, that's why I never really cared if I ever went back. I was like, I've already been there, done that. That kind of situation. I went and fought in Pride. I think that was also a very eye-opening situation. I fought in Nagoya Arena there. There was 40-something thousand people there when I fought. And I'm thinking to myself, like
I never fought in front of 40,000 people in the UFC.
I never fought in front of 40-something thousand people in the UFC. I'm like it's not, you know what I mean? So I was like, there's a lot of other options out here. Like it was very eye-opening to me. And not to mention with that fight, John, in front of those 30,000 or 40-something thousand people, I made triple the money.
Yes.
And so I was like, all right, this is where it's at. No, like, this is better.
Look, I started with the UFC, and I love the UFC and stuff, but there came a point where I was trying to get out of something, and I did, but it cost me with the UFC, and Dana was mad at me, and that was okay. But I learned right away, and I told people, hey, they go, why aren't you working with the UFC anymore? I go, it's not me, it's them, and that's okay. I'm okay with it. I'm doing just fine because I was working for Strike Force and other, all these other promotions, and I was having a good time, and it was like, I don't need them, and they don't need me. And once you learn that, it's freeing, Yeah. I turned down the UFC all the time when, later on when I went back to working for them, and it wasn't that I was against them. It was I put into play a very simple concept. Hey, if I accept a fight, no matter how small the show is, and the UFC or Bellator or someone else that's bigger comes and asks me to do it, I never, take the show from them and tell the other people, hey, I got something bigger. I will always stay with what I took. And I did that just because it was the right thing to do, in my opinion. And so I turned the UFC down all the time because they were always late. They were one of the last ones that, 2 weeks away from their show, they were, calling or something like that when I had this set up for over 2 months. Right. And it's like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm busy. And it was it was the right way of doing it. And it was freeing when you learn, hey, this isn't about those letters. This is about the sport. This is about just, hey, you can have fun doing this and enjoy yourself no matter who you're doing it for. Just have the right, emphasis behind you and why you're doing it.
Rogan talks about that all the time. Like, he's like, look, I set out my comedy schedule. He's like, when I set it out and I tell these venues that I'm going to be there, he's like, I don't give a shit who calls me.
Yep.
And if you call me to do an appearance, if the UFC calls me to do the show and they're like, hey, we want you to do this, he's like, nope, I can't do it. He's like, if you start ditching on those people because then they find out you went somewhere else, he's like, you're burning your bridges. Then your name gets ruined throughout, like in terms of, now, sure, you're working for a bigger organization. If, say, you took a LFA to ref an LFA, and then all of a sudden they see you in the UFC.
Okay.
That's a dick move, though. That's like, oh, he just clouded me. That he just showed everyone that he's got more clout by just doing that to me. And Rogan talks about not doing that, especially at the venues where he's like, look, I'm set at the, say, Nashville Improv. Or I don't know if there is a Nashville Improv. But you know what I mean? Like they have, different venues that they go to. He's like, you don't want to burn those bridges. You don't want to ruin those connections. And so that's very true. That's good.
100% agree. Okay.